Welcome back to the Bible Reading Project. It is Tuesday. I hope you had a great Memorial Day, enjoyed your family and your time, and you were thankful for those that gave their life for us. Hang out with me all week, though. I want to challenge you. If you're a Christian, it's almost a guarantee over the last several months you've been scratching your head going, what in the world is going on within the culture in which I live? All the gender identity issues now, everything that's coming down the pipeline with LGBTQ. We're rolling into June, which is Gay Pride Month. And yet we sit as Christians and think, how do we respond to this culture? How does it even impact my life? So we don't want to ignore it. I want to hang out with you all week in the Bible and try to give you some wisdom on how it does impact your life and what's going on around you right now that can potentially shift even you. So hang out with me. Romans chapter 1 today. It is how shall we say it? It is the gold standard in any debate on gender sexuality. It's going to be thrown at you. Whether you're on the LGBTQ side and you're pro, same-sex marriage, you're pro fluidity of gender, it's going to come up in a debate. Whether on the negative side of the debate or the positive side of the debate, whichever side you would fall on, guaranteed you're going to hit Romans 1, and both camps are going to be throwing rocks. So I'm going to dive into it today and give you my take on what's going on in the culture that impacts you potentially in a very grave way. So Romans chapter 1, here's how we need to go into this. We go into it knowing that the worst way to debate the subject of the Bible is to go into a chapter and pick a rock and start throwing a rock. So if we just pick up Romans 1 and start hurling rocks, well, the Bible says that homosexuality is wrong, lesbianism is wrong, we throw rocks, right? Well, you'll get rocks thrown back at you. But if you'll look at the Bible this way, it is not just chapters so you can get rocks. It is all 66 books are a quarry. So where we have to mine out the truths, not to throw rocks at each other, but to build great things that we can last for generations. So listen to Romans 1. Here's the question of the day. The sexuality that we see, we may say, is perverted. What's going on? And is there something bigger than just sexuality and gender identity going on? Is there a bigger thing, a bigger problem, a bigger issue, a bigger agenda at hand than just people trying to determine is a man a woman, a woman a woman, a man, and all of that? I think so. And I think it has potential to impact us who believe differently. And I want to help you come through it. Here it is, Romans chapter 1. We're going to jump midway in, verse 18. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. So long before we get into gender identity issues, LGBTQ, AI++ issues, any issue we pick, any sinful behavior you want to grab, your gossip, your gluttony, whatever you want to grab. That's what I mean by throwing rocks. We have to start with that the wrath of God is not just against a certain group of people, like God's really mad at LGBTQ, but he really likes people who overeat or who gossip. This is what Paul says in Romans 1. He says that God's anger is gendered toward people who suppress truth. So, in other words, truth takes a back seat to something else. So it's not, God puts the truth out there for us and gives us the truth. But he says if you're not careful, you'll suppress it. So that affects all of us. That means that everybody listening to this could potentially say, I'm a Christian believer, but acquire the displeasure of God, because though I believe and though I say I believe, if my life is lived to the antithesis of truth, well, then I can't please God. And that's all of us, myself included. So we can't just say what's going on with our culture and then label all this gender identity, all the sexual identity. That's a very shallow ditch. If you want to ask what's wrong with our culture, we have to look at everybody. We have to look at the religious and the non-religious. We have to look at the evil as well as the good people. We have to take the whole quarry and look at all of it and say, now what's happening with our culture? Not just picking aside Democrats, Republicans, Christians versus non-Christians, pro-abortion versus pro-choice, or anti-abortion, pro-life. Yeah, that's a shallowness of what we need to be looking at, because here's the deeper well to mine out. The deeper well is not all the things we pick, but it's whether or not is our culture suppressing truth to live the way they want to live. Let's read on, verse 19. Since what may be known about God is plain, in other words, God's not trying to hide anything from us, because God has made it plain. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. Listen to this. This is what I want to hold on. Verse 21. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. And although they claimed to be wise, they became fools. So here's the problem. The problem is not, oh God, my culture is going downhill fast. Every culture goes downhill fast. We're humans. You can trace historical records. Every civilization and every culture comes downhill. Every main governing world entity has fallen. So let's don't just pick on 2022 as, oh God, everything's so terrible. Or we would say things like this, oh, it's so much worse today than it was in the 70s and 80s. I wish I could just go back to then. It wasn't so bad. Well, the truth was, it was that bad. Because if I'm only looking at the superficial issues that irritate me, I'm looking at the 1970s, the hippie drug culture, but, it's bad related to me. But now here we sit and we're like, yeah, okay, now it's the gender identity, sexual free culture. And it's the same thing. It's every generation, every decade, we can pick things that we go, wow, it's a lot worse. It's not worse. This is what we have to land on as Christian believers. What's happening, and it can be happening in your own home, and it can be happening in your own heart, is that God says that there is a culture of existence in humans where humans will cease to be thankful for God. They will cease to recognize him as God, and they will exchange their feelings for the truth. And that is every culture from Adam and Eve. What did they do? They exchanged feelings, became their God. So how they felt became their God. And as soon as what we feel becomes our God, well, we're all in the same boat. And we look around and say, what's happening to my culture? I'll tell you what's happening to our culture. Maybe it's happening to your home. It might be happening to your marriage. It might be happening to your children. But the issue is not, oh God, LGBTQ, oh God, gender identity issues. The issue at hand is a deeper issue, and it should be, oh God, I could potentially be living in a place where my feelings become my God rather than truth. In other words, I exalt me and what I feel and what I think to be true above truth. And it's exactly what they said. They've suppressed truth because their feelings became their God. That's my wisdom to you today. What a foolish group of humans we are when we suppress truth and we make our feelings our God. Is that happening in your life? Is it happening in your family? Are you angry with culture? But if you looked in the mirror, you would think, but you're no different. Your feelings, your pouting, your anger, your frustrations, your overeating, your overspending. Really, I mean, if we're not careful, we look at the culture exterior and not look inside and say, if my feelings ever become my God, this is what the Christian lingo is. It says you must crucify the flesh. You must die to yourself. So the issue is not culture. It's been here from the beginning of time. The issue is when feelings override what God is wanting to do. And I want to teach you this week how to govern your feelings and not make them your God, so that you can live the truth of God out and be successful in your life. I hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great evening. I'll see you in the morning.